For decades, there's been this one simple rule for managing late blight. When the weather looks right, you spray. It's the fundamental playbook, right? But what if I told you that playbook is now setting you up for failure? What if following that old rule isn't just unreliable, but actually dangerous?
And look, this isn't just some what-if scenario. We're going to break down exactly why this trusted strategy is failing and what the new, much smarter playbook looks like. Because let's be honest, getting this right has huge implications for the success of your whole season.
So, let's start with what we all know, the old playbook. This is the familiar, intuitive logic that's been baked into pretty much all of our forecasting systems for decades.
And it was always a simple two-step dance. First, the forecast flags perfect conditions for late blight. You know, the right temperature, high humidity, wet leaves. And then, step 2, the sprayer rolls out. It's a straightforward climate as trigger model. And for a long time, it worked. It was enough. But here's the thing. That model, it's now broken. And we're not talking about a small crack. It has two fundamental flaws that completely undermine its reliability today. So let's dig into them.
So, the old rule fails for two huge and very distinct reasons. First, you can have absolutely perfect blight weather, but the pathogen itself might not even be in the area. And second, even if it is there, the strain that's present might be completely resistant to what you're spraying. Let's tackle that first problem, the missing pathogen.
It sounds almost too simple, but this is a massive hole in the old logic. Favorable conditions mean absolutely nothing if the inoculum, the actual disease spores, aren't physically present. It's like having a perfect stage, lights, and sound system, but the main actor never shows up. No actor, no play. Simple as that.
This quote from the research just gets to the absolute heart of the new strategy. Think of it this way. The climate only describes the opportunity for disease. It sets the stage. But it's pathogen detection that defines the actual threat. That distinction right there, that changes everything.
And the data on this is, well, it's powerful. A recent study in Spain found that when they added aerobiological data, in other words, when they actually started tracking airborne spores and put that into their weather models, their prediction accuracy shot up to over 90%. It just proves that knowing the pathogen is actually there is the missing piece of the puzzle.
Okay, so that's problem number 1. But there's a second flaw, and it's just as critical. Let's say the weather is right, and you know the pathogen is present. You can still have a total control failure, because the pathogen population itself has evolved.
And this is not a hypothetical. I want you to meet the EU43 genotype. Researchers in Denmark documented that this specific strain of late blight had developed complete resistance to mandapropamide, a very common and important CAA fungicide. This is a real game changer.
And here's what that looks like in the real world. In 2022, this single resistant strain made up 64% of the entire late blight population in Denmark. Just let that sink in for a second. In nearly 2/3 of fields, a perfectly timed, by-the-book spray of a key fungicide would have done absolutely nothing. That's how fast the entire game can change.
And believe me, this isn't a one-off. New threats are constantly emerging. Just recently, a new genotype, EU46, was found over in the UK, and yep, it's showing resistance to another key fungicide. The lesson here is crystal clear. The assumptions you made about your chemistry last year might be dangerously wrong this year.
So, if the old playbook is broken, what do we replace it with? Well, the solution is to move away from a simple trigger to a smarter, information-based process. This is the new framework. It's a 3-step sequence. You still start by assessing the climate risk. Weather forecasting is, of course, still essential. But, and this is critical, step 2 is to confirm the pathogen is actually there and, just as important, what you know about its characteristics, like local resistance. Only then, in step 3, do you select the right fungicide based on that complete picture of intelligence.
This brings us to a really fundamental shift. Information about the pathogen, spore counts, resistance reports, that can't be background noise anymore. It has to be treated as decision-critical intelligence, right on par with your weather forecast.
Okay, so we've laid out the problem and the new framework. But how do you actually put this into practice? What does this all mean for your decision-making, this season?
The single biggest change that's required here, it isn't a new tool or some new product. It's a conceptual shift. It's about fundamentally changing the way you think about the decision to spray in the first place.
And this is the call to action. It's the single most important takeaway from this entire explainer. Stop using climate as a standalone trigger. Start treating the pathogen itself as an active, living variable in your decision-making equation. It can't just be an assumption anymore.
So here's how you can put this into practice this season. It's one concrete action. First, identify your closest source of late blight population monitoring. This could be a university, a research institute, a government agency. Second, consult it regularly, just like you check the weather. And third, integrate that data directly into your decisions about which chemistry to use and when.
So we'll leave you with this thought. Every single grower checks the weather forecast. It's second nature. But the real question now is, are you checking your pathogen forecast? Because in today's world, one without the other is only giving you half the story.